Hello, my friends. This is Otaku Cook, and today I'm making Abura Soba. Now, you might be wondering what exactly is Abura Soba? Well, to put it simply, it's soupless ramen. So, let's get right into it. The first thing we'll do is marinate our pork. Now I'm using pork shoulder here, but of course you can use pork belly. Now if you don't eat pork, you can use chicken. If I was making regular ramen, I would have said to use chicken breast, but in this case I would highly recommend that you use chicken thighs if you are using chicken. So for the marinade we need a teaspoon of salt, 4 tablespoons of soya sauce, 4 tablespoons of mirin, 6 tablespoons of sake, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Usually brown sugar is used, but I don't have brown sugar. Mix everything well and let it rest for about 1 to 2 hours. Overnight would be great, but if you are on a pinch, a few hours of marination would do just fine. Now, as you may see, I am doing something a little different with my chashu over here. I haven't tied it down or held it in a way where it is maintaining any shape. Now, I will explain it to you why a little later. But first, let's make our own homemade ramen noodles. Now, for making ramen noodles, it is very important for having these two things, a weighing scale and kansui, which I'll explain what it is. So kansui is basically baked baking soda. All you have to do is bake your baking soda for 1 hour at 120 degrees Celsius, and that's about it. Your kansui, or at least the main ingredient for making kansui, is ready. So what does kansui does? Well, it actually gives yellow color to your noodles as well as make them chewy, springy, and give them the stretch that is required for making noodles. Again, extremely important ingredient, very simple to make, so please don't skip this process. Now we can start making our noodles. Like I said, a weighing scale is extremely important for making our noodles. The reason is because you want precise measurements so that you don't have to add anything and imbalance the recipe. For this particular recipe, we require 500 grams of flour, 5 grams of soda ash, and 5 grams of salt, which we will be adding in 200 ml of water for making our kansui solution. Now that we have measured everything, we can start making our noodles. But first, you have to remember one thing. Do not touch kansui with your bare hands. At least at first, when you are mixing the flour and kansui, you shouldn't be touching it. So, you need to use tools for this. Now you can use anything of your liking. A pair of chopsticks, a whisk, even a pair of forks. Anything that you have in your kitchen that would help you to mix flour without touching it can be used at this time. Now the noodle making process is relatively simple. Time consuming, yes, but very simple. All you have to do is very slowly add in your kansui solution in the flour and keep on mixing it with, well, in my case, chopsticks. Now there are a few reasons why you need to add your kansui solution gradually into the flour. Reason number 1, have you ever made a dough in your life? Well, if you have, you know that if you add a lot of water at the very beginning, what happens is you form a dough right in the middle like a lump, and then you try to incorporate all the dry flour and it becomes a mess because either you add in more flour or add more water to incorporate everything, ending up messing up the recipe by imbalancing everything. Not to mention it will add on to your work by extra kneading. Reason number 2, it is very important that the kansui solution is well distributed equally so that the flour completely absorbs it. This will lead to having nice, chewy, springy noodles. Reason number 3 is the hydration percentage. Now, these noodles are 40% hydrated. If you want to maintain the hydration level, you have to also stick with the recipe. 40% hydration is high hydration, but it is also very easy to work with. Also, you know when you're done, when you would be able to grab some flour and hold on to it, and when you release it, it is in a lump, but you can also crumble it very easily. When you're done with mixing your kansui, you can let the dough rest for about 20 to 30 minutes before we start kneading and laminating it. Now that our dough is pretty much done, we can start by cutting and chopping the aromatics that are required for the other parts of the recipe. So for the Rayu chili oil, you require to finely chop your ginger and garlic. For the chashu, just crush the garlic. You don't even have to peel it, and you can cut the ginger in thick slices. Now finally you have to thinly slice your garlic for making burnt garlic and nori oil. Pretty straightforward. Slice 5 to 6 cloves of garlic as thinly as you can. Now remember when I said why I haven't held together the pork that I'm going to use with any strings or even maintain any shape? Well, this is the reason why. I'm making pulled pork chashu. Now traditionally, even in Abura Soba, chashu is served by cutting it into thin slices. Actually very thin slices in the case of Abura Soba. But this time I'm not going to do that. I'm going to treat it like barbecue. In a way, I'm not going to roast it or anything like that. It's just much more easier and it helps the texture much better in my opinion if you just use it like pulled pork. Believe it or not, the fat literally melts on the noodles, and when you mix everything up, A, it actually mixes up very well, and B, because the noodles are covered with the pork fat, it enhances the flavor. Not to mention, the meat is so tender that it literally melts in your mouth. The procedure is very straightforward and simple. All you have to do is add some oil in your heated pressure cooker, then add your ginger and garlic, cook them until they release their aroma, then add your pork and sear them a little just to get a little color on it. It won't really matter, it would just add on to some toasty flavors. Once it gets some color, move it around, then add the rest of the marinade in, close the pressure cooker and cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes. Now that the chashu is cooking, we can finally concentrate on our dough. All you have to do is knead the dough to the point where all of the flour comes together. Now I know the flour is too dry, so it will be a bit difficult, but if you be patient with it and apply a little force, it will come together. Now you don't even have to knead it for that long, you just have to knead it for like 15 minutes or until everything comes together. Now that the dough has come together, all you have to do is smooth it out a little, cut it into portions, flatten those portions with your rolling pin, and then let it rest for additional 20 to 30 minutes. Till the time our dough is resting, we can start making our Rayu chili oil. I have made chili oil in my past video, so in this one I'm not really going to go in much detail. The only difference is that in this one I am using a spicy variety of dried chili. That's it. So the first thing we'll do is put our chilies with the seeds in, of course, and some sesame in our mixer and grind it into a coarse powder. Not really a powder, just more like until the chilies turn into chili flakes and the sesame breaks down a little. In a bowl, add your grinded chili and sesame as well as your ginger and garlic. Keep it aside. In a pan, add bay leaf, Szechuan peppercorns, and oil. Any neutral oil would do, and heat it up until it almost starts smoking. Once the oil heats up, add the oil onto the chilies and the ginger and garlic mixture, and there you go. That is your Rayu chili oil. Okay, so for our burnt garlic and nori oil, it's very straightforward and simple. All you have to do is add some oil into the pan, add your sliced garlic, and heat it until the garlic almost burns. Yes, you have to almost burn the garlic. That's the key to it. Let it brown. It's okay if it even passes over to maroon or even black. You actually kind of want that to happen. Once you're done with that, add the oil and the garlic into your mixer with some nori seaweed. Now, I know it is very difficult to get nori, and I know it is also kind of expensive, but for this recipe, it's actually worth it. If you don't have nori, that's fine. You don't have to add it. Just make sure that you actually literally burn the garlic in this situation. Just let it go past black and add some sesame when you grind it. But if you can get your hands on nori, all you have to do is get some sheets of nori, tear it down, add it with the garlic and oil, and grind it together. That's it. You're done with your burnt garlic and nori oil. Okay, so now we can start making our noodles. So you need to take one of your flattened doughs, divide it into 4 or in manageable pieces. If you have a pasta machine, this is going to be very easy for you. If you don't, that's okay. You can still do this. For those who actually have a pasta machine, this is how you do it. First, put your roller onto the thickest setting, which is number 1, and roll out the dough once, even twice, just to smooth it out. Then gradually reduce the thickness and make it as thin as you want. Once you do that, fold it. Now the way you fold this is by grabbing hold of both the ends and folding them in the middle, and then cranking the thickness setting back to the thickest and rolling it out once or twice again. You have to laminate the dough at least 3 or 4 times for getting a nice long stretch and a nice chewy texture. Now, for those who don't have a pasta machine, you have to do the same thing, except it's just a little difficult because you have to maintain the thickness equally all throughout when you're rolling it with a rolling pin. My advice would be to buy a heavy rolling pin that would actually help you better to evenly spread out the dough. And then you have to do the same, just fold it by taking both the ends and folding them into the middle, and repeating the process again and again 3 or maybe 4 times. When your dough is stretched and laminated and it has the desired length that you want for your noodles, you can start cutting the dough into noodles. If you have a pasta machine, of course, you can cut that from the pasta machine itself. If you don't have it, use a knife to do it. Now, ramen isn't ramen if it doesn't have Ajidama in it. Now, Ajidama is the half-boiled egg that you see in most ramen dishes. It is very easy to make. First, what you need to do is poke a hole at the bottom of your egg. You can do it with a small paring knife. Just be careful while you do it. You don't have to break the entire egg, just carefully poke a hole in it. You don't even have to completely pierce the shell, just a small hole would do just fine. This will help the air that is within the egg to escape, and it will also help the egg to release itself from the shell once it's done cooking, so that it is easier for you to remove the shell later. Then you have to boil the egg exactly for 6 minutes. Once the 6 minutes are done, you have to remove it and put it in cold water. Ice cold water is preferable. Also remember to keep the egg moving for at least 1 minute when you add the egg in the boiling water. Meanwhile, our pork is done. Make sure that you let it cool a little before you start shredding it. Now, the pork is so tender that you don't even need a fork to shred the pork. You literally can do it with a spoon. In fact, I am doing it with a spoon. So, shred the pork and keep it aside for later use. Now that we are done shredding our pork, we can start cooking our noodles and assembling our dish. Cooking them is very simple. You just have to boil some water and make sure that you don't add any salt in it. And also, very important, you also shouldn't add any oil in it as well. Even when you're cooking pasta, I have no idea where people got this idea of adding oil in the water while you're cooking pasta. That is not a good idea, you're just wasting oil. So, when your water starts boiling, add your noodles and make sure that you keep these noodles moving. Don't let them sit down, it will stick down and also will tangle and stick to each other. So to prevent that, keep them moving. If you have a pair of chopsticks, it will help you do that. And when the noodles start floating up, that is when you remove them. They are done. It won't take you more than 90 seconds to cook these noodles perfectly. Now all that's left is to arrange and assemble your dish. Add some of your meat on the side, add your Ryu chili oil, some of your burnt garlic and nori oil, garnish it with a little green onion, and don't forget your Ajidama. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and write down in the comment section below what you like me to make. Thank you for watching this video. Until next time.